Joined the Omaha Club, club number 67. Omaha Club that was founded in 1951, the same year that Serra was aggregated to the Vatican, the same year that the Serra Foundation was founded. In 1983, Brennan's State of Serra address, he announced, in his words, Serra International is alive and well. While there are challenges, it also has remarkable strengths. That year, Brennan also talked about the growth of Serra in North America, in which he personally observed in his travels to many cities on that continent that year. He then publicly thanked past president Frank Medico, father of our own incoming Serra President-elect Kurt, and thanked him for his personal efforts and assistance in the international arena of Serra, including Medico's personal visit that year along with Kurt's mom and Frank's wife Rita to many Asian countries, including a visit to the recently formed Serra Club of Bangkok, the first in the country. That year, Serra membership just broke over 15,000 members, with 481 clubs in 31 countries. 13 new clubs were chartered that year. This year, 2023, Serra once again boasts of slightly over 15,000 members worldwide in 450 active clubs in 18 countries. While we have retracted somewhat from our peak years, suffering from aging membership and lack of recruitment in some areas, we have, in fact, been successful in reconsolidating and trimming down our organization to fit its size. And we've restricted, or reduced rather, the administrative overhead to better match our current activity. I believe that we had to get smaller in order to get bigger. And after shaking the lingering effects of COVID this past few years, I believe that we're on the rebound. Serra has begun a long and sustained climb back and focusing on energetically rebuilding its membership ranks. This year, like 1983, 13 new clubs have been chartered or resurrected, adding over 300 members to our ranks worldwide. So let's remember what we do best. Pope Francis in his address to us in 2017 said some very important things, two of which I'm going to mention to you. The first one being, Serrans, you are friends to priests and seminarians. And he said, Serrans, we need you. So his comments were from that address, it is good for us to reflect on what friends do, he said. The Serra Club helps foster this beautiful vocation of being laity who are friends to priests. And I think in particular, this next line has always really struck me very deeply. And he describes, he says, friends who share the wonder of a vocation, the courage of a definitive decision, and the joy and fatigue of ministry. Friends who can offer priests support and regard their generous efforts and human failings with understanding and tender love. I found that to be just profound, and I've read it more than once, and I've said it more than once. I like to share that, and when you think about the process that we've been blessed and grace to be part of in a young man, a young woman's life, to make that definitive decision, that life-changing commitment, and then to walk with him over these many years with the joy and the fatigue of ministry, really captures it beautifully, I think. But it's not all work. So I always enjoyed, I don't know who came up with the beer with International Buy a Priest a Beer Day, but I always thought it was fun. But And my own pastor, I said, you know, beer's okay, but beer with friends is a lot better. So you can see the impact that just my close presence to him made on that gift. And also my dear friend who's here with me, Father Mark Lim, who's a priest of the Archdiocese of Omaha, who raised and grew up in Singapore. And God knows how he works as far as bringing him, Father Mark, into the Omaha Archdiocese, but it was a circuitous route, I can tell you that. And we're going to have a circuitous route going back with him. So anyway, it's great to be friends with our dear priests. Our patron, St. Junipero Serra, what a remarkable opportunity, what a brilliant thing for them to claim, our founders, to claim a priest, Father Junipero Serra, as our patron. And, you know, of course, I think they picked him for a number of reasons, but two of the reasons that I think that come out to us were really expressed really well in a talk that was given by our own Cardinal Collins. And he talked about four qualities of St. Junipero Serra that I think every Serran, and he thought every Serran, should try to mimic and emulate. So in addition to being a model for us of prayer and study, our patron embodies two other remarkable qualities that every Serran should emulate, he said. The first one is zeal. So Cardinal Collins entreats us all to become fire. You can just imagine, if you've heard him give that talk and use his fingers and just how he does it. Become fire of the Lord. And we must not become bland Serrans. We must love the Lord with enthusiasm. As a role model, St. Junipero Serra was indefatigable. I can't pronounce it even though I try it many times. But he never stopped. And he was 55 when you think about when you get to know about his history and his life, you realize the different phases that he went through. And being tapped to start this new chain of missions in Alta California. He started with his first one. He was 55 years old in San Diego, and then, of course, we all know that he went on to found another additional 8 missions over the next 16 years. But it was his zeal that overcame many obstacles and sustained him when things were rough. The lesson from him is to confront your disappointments. In life, there's a lot of bumpy air ahead. And Father Serra was fighting adversaries both within and outside of the church. But he kept on going. And he modeled our motto, Siempre Adelante, with consistent zeal. It would be good for us to pray for that quality to be given to our priest as well. The second attribute that I wanted to speak, quality that I wanted to talk about our dear patron, was that of hope. And in particular, that when Cardinal Collins gave this talk, this attribute and quality really just resonated with me. As he mentioned and once again instructed us, hope is not just optimism. Hope is very clear-eyed. It is realistic. You must keep your head on when everyone else is losing theirs. That is hope. Hope sees the fallen reality of the world, but it also sees it in the context of divine providence, the great plan of God in which we are all the star actors. Hope does not deny evil, but rather it looks right into it within the broader perspective of providence. Hope is based on faith. Hope sees the human condition in cold clarity. St. Junipero Serra was unstoppable, but it was hope that carried him through the tough times. He was not discouraged by the many disappointments and challenges of his time. He was sustained by hope, by his trust in the providence of God. He is our patron and role model. He is the one to ask for his intercession and to pray that our Lord provides us with these necessary strengths. Board activities for this year. Sometimes we get a great idea, and sometimes that idea just knocks you over the head. And we had one this year that I can think of right off the bat, the challenge coin. It hit like a lightning bolt. And it just was one particular person really drove it. My credit goes to Bob Rudman to really promote this. What's interesting about this whole scenario, it was the statistic that has been brought forth from many, many CARA studies of recently ordained priests. In answer to the question, were you encouraged to consider the priesthood by any of these people? And always, every year, year after year after year, the parish priest comes first. The number of individual priests that have been recently ordained that year said, yes, our parish priest. Almost 7 out of 10 said it was the parish priest that was one of the influencers. One of the influencers. And so that consistency. Now, the other question that was given out to the parish priest was, how many of you invite young men and women to consider vocation? Only 20% said so. There's a disconnect. They maybe don't understand the impact that they have for whatever reasons, and not everybody can ask, but the idea behind the challenge coin was to provide these coins to our priests to pass on to these young, aspiring, with great potential, young men and young women, as a reminder. In a way, it's a prop, but we're just trying to create a conversation, and in a sense, this is one of a long-lasting memory of a conversation that may linger in the minds of a young man and young woman as they venture out and try to discern what God is calling them to do. So these coins are, I think, tremendous. And then the opportunity working with primarily Bob, coming up with both the priest one and the religious order one on the right, and then to package it, and then to promote it. So I had the opportunity to share these ideas, as many of you have, with influencers, in vocations. And so, in particular, Sister Mercedes, who was one of our Serra Meet speakers, who's with the Dominicans of Ann Arbor, and then also our dear Cardinal Bo. And so, I mean, there's so many, and I think also Archbishop Wells, I gave him both. He's going to give them out. And I'm thinking, these are great ideas. And just an incentive, it doesn't take a lot to make a difference, in a sense. So what I really want to commend Bob in absentia and others who have taken on this, because many of the clubs have really grasped this as an idea. And so it's being spread out so many different ways, used so many different ways. Again, it creates an opportunity for a conversation to happen, an affirmative conversation. I think you have some qualities that would make you a good priest, religious sister, etc. Have you considered being that? And so let that question linger. Let that question linger. And let God take it from there. Great opportunity on the Serra International Board is to work together with great people. So part of what I wanted to bring is more than just a guess of what we're going to do. So to me, I find that our people are just tremendously motivated. We have great people on our board, and all it really takes is just an opportunity to be together. So the Serra International Board this year, which here's a picture of those who were able to come to our convention today, this weekend, and many others, whether it be in at the Serra rally, which is what this evidence was, or if it's on a Zoom meeting, which everybody is very familiar with. These are all ways that we've been able to have many discussions and productive meetings. So we've met once a month, either in the capacity of the executive committee, or we've worked in the larger committee. And I think because of, it's just been a great productive group. So my thanks to them and everybody here that's on that board. So of course our own Episcopal moderator, Cardinal Collins, what a tremendous joy he's been and committed to the board like we haven't had for quite a while. So we really appreciate and have benefited from his presence and his continued commitment. Of course, Kurt and Margot, this is around one of the many things that you guys do. And so Kurt, in his capacity as president-elect, Margot, capacity as membership chair, helped run the missionaries contest, expanded into other countries, continue to develop that I believe to be an important momentum within the organization, as well as to come up with the Sprint program, which will be a retaining, engagement and retention effort that is starting to get launched. And so big efforts there. In this picture here, we've got the two kings from Italy, Emmanuel and Giuseppe. Emmanuel is the Vice President of Vocations. Just recently completed this year a large survey, an extensive survey of all the councils of best practices of vocation activities. So that will be conveyed to our larger Catholic our larger Serra population later on this year. But the effort to just assemble it and then to discuss the proper ways to communicate it have been a large part of his work this year. Bob Rudman, as I mentioned to you earlier, in his capacity of being the Vice President of Communications, under his domain, in addition to having that little side job of doing the challenge coins, worked a lot on establishing the translation opportunities that we'll have, as far as that we'll yet to really finalize, but to be able to communicate with the larger Catholic community or larger Serra community is going to be key for us in his efforts. And so also underneath in his committee work included the new IT selection for Club Express as far as to manage the portal, and then also the working now with Vienna Vocations for communications as we go forward to redo our websites and to create a real solid communication package for Serra worldwide. And Moira McQueen, Vice President of Programs, and then also Chair of the Long Range Planning Committee. So Moira out of Canada, working on the bigger scope. She's been nominated for the President-elect, and she will also continue to work on the long-range plan as we work on an updated Serra strategic plan. As we've completed the last 5-year plan, we'll have a new one that will be rolled out. And then Bob Camney on the left with our 2 seminarians from Omaha. We had an opportunity to see them when we were in Rome in October. And so treasure and so grateful for his work, working with both the council and the international level as far as trying to make our whole financial foundation as secure as possible. So I'm really grateful for that and all his work that he's done and helped me in that regard. Finally, the office staff of John Liston and Giovanna and Barbara Luster, key people, of course, they keep the ball rolling and the lights on when everybody else goes home. So the importance of the office staff is just critical for everybody. We know it, we believe it, and I just think we're blessed to have who we have. So thank you for all of you, all your contributions on this. So the Serra International Board gets an opportunity to travel once a year to Rome. We have it to be a great opportunity because then it's in that capacity as an international board that we reinforce our connection to the Vatican through meetings with the dicastery, the clergy now. In the center there is Cardinal Lazarus Yu Huang Sik, recently, or Archbishop from Seoul, Korea, and now the prefect for the dicastery. We got to meet him, speak to him, and then over on the right is the Archbishop from Chile, I think Sagado is his name. And so these are the people that are in the direct connection that we have for Serra. So it's in that capacity that we get to express what we're doing and then go the back and forth about how we can serve the larger Catholic church communities for their vocational needs. That's where we intersect with the larger church, is in that office, at that capacity, and in those meetings. I want to say that they're fruitful. I don't think they happen maybe often enough. They tend to, at least the last one that we had, since Cardinal Lazarus was just recently appointed, and so he was, I might say he was getting his feet wet, so to speak, in the job. But it was nice to introduce ourselves to it and to start that process. Also, this past year, that's our document that connects us directly with the Vatican. And I think that's Cesare. So I think he's holding that up, and I can just tell you that it exists. So, and it's nice to see that happens. It was fun to see that happen. And then you'll see our dear happy Cardinal Mark Willett, who was just left us a few minutes ago. We also had an opportunity to visit with him and to talk about this conference and also the work that we did with his symposium that Mike Bragg led to Rome back in February of 2022, I think it was. And so he said to me today about how important it was to have that impetus, that support at that time, because that's something dear to his heart, and I believe that we will continue to interact with him and his group, his organization, relative to the promotion of priesthood around the world. So it's in our wheelhouse. We're a go-to group for that. So thanks for leading the charge on that, Mike, and where we're going. So the USA Council, of course, is one of the key things that we've got, and the easiest thing for me to reach out to since I'm geographically close to it. So there was a lot of visits that I made to the council. Of course, everyone knows that it's the largest of our international councils. It consists of almost 200 clubs. In the last 12 months, I've attended 21 separate events, speaking to the membership or leadership of almost 50 clubs, not counting the Serra National Rally, which was held this past January in Dallas. The council, of course, provides monthly informative and inspiring Serra Meet speakers, which were promoted this past year and have been for the last couple. It also promotes and does a lot of work on developing club leadership. Mike Downey and I, this is where we meet in Adair, Iowa, undercover, so nobody knows where we're at. And we make all these big decisions there, and the biggest decision being what are we going to have for breakfast. And then, after that, it's all important and fun as far as what we work on. So his presentation in particular, we had an opportunity to meet on a number of regional conferences, this one being in the Great Lakes area in Indianapolis that we met. So it's important to be present to people. So I haven't had an opportunity to be around for a number of presentations, speaking to individual clubs, or to make big events, like, for example, to be part of the Northeast Detroit charter of the new club up there, to be present with Mike there, also the district governor, Tom Buick, and then the region director, Ken Pete. Also had an opportunity to be invited to a presentation done down in Washington, Vancouver, Washington. This is an interesting event. It was sponsored by the local club in Vancouver, which is in the southern part of the Seattle Diocese. This is at a parish. This is a vocations night. Everybody's invited from the parish. Those people in that group that you see, 450 people, 90% of them are parishioners. Okay, parishioners with families, parishioners with friends, etc. And in that, they have a meal. It's after the evening mass. It's a Saturday night. They meet, have a nice meal that's not expensive. And then they get presentations by a priest and religious. And then the archbishop comes and he gives a pitch. And it's just a great local promotion of vocations at a big scale. So they do it once a year or once every, I think this is the first time since COVID, maybe they were down for a year or two. But this was a remarkably, I'm going to say, everybody was involved, and I thought it was a very productive evening for them. So then other regional conferences in various regions up in South Dakota, had a chance to meet with the Serra clubs up in Seattle. What's interesting, the priest here, Father Justin Ryan, in the middle there is the new vocation director. This diocese this is Seattle, there's probably, I think, 6 Serra clubs in Seattle. And so once a year they get together and they divvy up the work of the diocese over the next calendar year. So every club's involved, we get together, he works it out. They've got a number of activities, maybe 30 different activities, of which the different clubs join in and participate at different levels. A great collaborative effort done by a diocese where you have more than one Serra club. And I think those of you who are in Serra clubs that are in a diocesan structure with more than one, this should be an annual event. Either you're meeting with the vocation director, or maybe you're meeting with the vocation director and the bishop or the archbishop. So these are things that we collaborate with and make Serra relevant to what's going on in that particular area. So tremendous, tremendous situation. This is the monstrance that we use for adoration that was given to us by the Holy Father John Paul II for North America. Serra was entrusted with it. It's been in the office a number of years. A number of our clubs use this and sign up for it. And so on the bottom is an inscription that talks about how that's happened in 2004. He made 6 of them up for the various continents. And so Serra was entrusted with this for the North American continent. And so the Serra office maintains it, uses it, sends it out, it comes back, sends it out, comes back. A number of our clubs and areas use this for special events. It's available, it underscores how at one time, or at these various times, that people identify with what we do as our mission. So the monstrance is beautiful, first of all, but to use it in a proper way is even more beautiful. So it's great. I talked earlier today at lunch about district governors, and so this group here, you'll remember Dick Peterson, who just recently came off our Serra International Board, and his wife Celine. It struck me as I looked at the picture here that both of them got the Face of Serra Award. And so, I mean, and they didn't get it together at the same time. They both got it separately. And this is a commitment of a family, to serve Serra at different levels. And so, I actually took the picture, did not realizing exactly what I was taking right off, but then it hit me. Just great, just wonderful. Bob Labatt, Serra USA Council, past president, and good Serra leader. And so, anyway, with the picture of St. Junipero Serra, and just ongoing Mr. Energy and promotion up in Minnesota. Here's our Cardinal Collins. This is at the Serra Rally. So, Serra Rally, the importance of adoration within our own activities. Always high marks as far as adoration and prayer that happens at these rallies and at these conventions. Compliments to the rally organizers to always include this as part of our experience when we come to learn. Of course, we get the opportunity to meet bishops and be affirmed by them, which we do. You might remember Bishop Ed Burns. He's in the middle of this talk, and then it's next to him is his auxiliary Bishop Gregory Kelly. Bishop Ed Burns, those of you who went up to Anchorage, Alaska will remember him. And you might remember him before that, but at the time he was the Bishop of Juneau, Alaska, and he was part of our Serra International Convention up there in Anchorage. And I remember him talking about that he could get all of the priests in his diocese, the diocesan priests, in his band. And he had that few diocesan priests. Now he had a lot of religious order priests, thankfully, but what a great attitude. And he talked so sincerely. Those of you who went to the Serra International, the rally rather, you heard his talk about how touched he was as a young priest from the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and how the Serrans came to his house the day after he was ordained and held a celebration for him and his family. And so it is the deepness of his appreciation for Serra over the years. Sister, I don't know what her name is, but I do know that the vocation director, this is the sisters from Nashville, the Dominicans from Nashville. That's a picture of their women in formation. That's not their entire community. That's the ones that are trying to get in. And so they had 42 women in that event. And, you know, I was thinking about this, that it's so great to see God, you know, just working in so many different places. And so sometimes we might focus on where things are diminishing, but, you know, you can almost be sure that somewhere else they're growing and they're blossoming. And so to see the joy and to meet these young ladies is just a tremendous blessing for us. And it just affirms what our work has been. You'll remember this lady here, Ann Getz, especially Mike, you'll remember, I think you've met her. So this woman was a beneficiary of one of the foundation's gifts, grants this past year, is she has a special promotion of the religious life based on this religious community in Annecy, France, and this same town where St. Francis of Sales came from. And so she's taken these portraits of religious sisters around the country into various museums, into art galleries, into various public places, and just a wonderful, beautiful artist, you know, in working with this. And her work was the subject of one of our Serra magazines, and just that whole story is a beautiful story. The man on the left, the second one from the left, his name's McLean Andrews, and he's a young man that I was his accountability partner for as he went into the Jesuits. And so the connection that we have with Labouré over the years has been significant, where some people of our group can walk with young men and women in a very close, particular way on a weekly visit, just to keep them moving forward in their journey. And in this case, in Labouré Society, they're moving towards paying down their college debt. And sometimes this becomes an obstacle towards their entry into the religious life, or at least into formation. So the recent Serra meets, we had an opportunity to meet with John Flanagan, and he likewise emphasized this and embodied that whole idea about where we're working together with people that are in the trenches, and it's a great blessing to be part of that. So I'm gonna, Bob Barrett, who is Detroit, the big promoter of the 31 Club, and these are just, and then finally, this great 75th anniversary of the Grand Rapids Club, and the number of people that were able to participate. And thanks for the invitation to that, Dennis and Dan and others that were part of that. And it's just a great, beautiful experience to have clubs that are reaching 75-year milestones in our group. So the rest of the stories relate to international travel, Brazil, which is always a standard stop for many of us. Serra now more than ever. Those of you who've gone to Brazil, we know we've got 60 clubs in Brazil, and we have a lot of enthusiasm. I was able to charter a new Young Serrans club down there. They're really young. And so, anyway, that was interesting to be part of that. And of course, Ulysses Saban, that's Roberto's father, and Afonso Iannone received special awards in recognition of their service. Great Serran commitment there from that country. In Italy, again, we have an opportunity to go to Rome and to be part of it. Who knows what you're going to run into? And little did the Archbishop know that he's going to run into Margot Getty. So sometimes you just take a chance, and then but you get found out sooner or later. Giuseppe and Emmanuel, and then Paola Pauli, the president of the Italian Council, being part of their training and their annual events that they have to bring together Serra in Italy, 50 clubs, and great presence, great organization, great to be part of that. Canada, the wonderful Ordinandi dinner, Tony Mangione, the president of the council at that time, Fran Bombarat, now the president. They were ordaining 8 priests there with our cardinal there, and so these were the soon-to-be ordained men that were coming into the Toronto diocese and nearby, coming out of their diocesan seminary. So what an enthusiastic, great experience to be part of that. Big night, the Ordinandi, they have 600 or 700, a lunch for 600 or 700 high school students, and then the presentation of the newly soon-to-be ordained priest to them. And then later that evening, another 1,200 or 1,300, if you will, adults, older people, that come to have the same experience for them. By the way, this recently discovered, well-hidden statue is in Chicago, and in the church closest to our office, which is St. Peter's in the Loop. And so a great Franciscan parish, and so we find this his presence there is just neat to see it, to be taking a picture next to it, etc. Paraguay. Maybe of all the trips, this was probably the most enthusiastic group because they're small and they just are on fire. Going back to our own Cardinals experience, and so they're on fire for Serra. This is Father Gervan Menez from the Diocese of Nashville, who's a native of Brazil. He went on this trip to Paraguay and Brazil with us to both translate and interpret for us. A great help to us. And then meeting with Christian Arce, who's on our board, and to meet the many Serrans, we chartered a new club in Caucape, and they gave me this wonderful flag, the Serra flag, as a gift to Serra. And so it was a beautiful presentation. And then the Bishop of Cacope, Bishop Valenzuela, showing him and giving him a Serra decade rosary at this particular time. So it's just like a wonderful, enthusiastic group. Just loved it. Altar servers, if I misspelled that. 73% of our priests said that they were an altar server. And so we think about the impact that Serrans have around the world in their altar server appreciation. And some of them have been altar servers for a long time. In particular, Mike Downey showing off his Serra medal that he got as a young boy. And then this is the local Omaha club activity. I've been doing it for a lot of years. And so the impact that we've had on these young men and women by just recognizing them and encouraging them, giving them their medal, thanking them, the Archbishop was there. Tremendous, tremendous impact. We see altar server award ceremonies frequently around the world. And this is one that Serra needs to continue to develop and promote. Very impactful. So we come to maybe the conclusion. But Siempre Adelante is the great motto that we have. So with Siempre Adelante comes a lot of challenges, because there's this challenge of moving forward because a lot of us don't like to move. We kind of like where we're at. You know, you get it to the point where, oh, I just got it perfect the way it is right now. But our church isn't set up that way. We've got a very dynamic church that moves. The people move. Everything's different. Each day has got a different challenge to it. And so, as the Pope mentions and says in his same address in 2017, he says this Siempre Adelante is a motto, so to speak, of the Christian vocation. Because a vocation is an invitation to go forth from ourselves to rejoice in our relationship with the Lord and to journey along the ways that He opens to us. Of course, that's called prayer. Of course, we can't make progress unless we take a risk. We do not advance to a goal if, as the gospel says, we are afraid to lose our lives. No ship would ever set out into the deep if it feared leaving the safety of the harbor. So too, you Christians cannot enter the transforming experience of God's love unless you are open to new possibilities and not tied to your own plans and cherished ways of doing things. Pastoral structures can fall into the same temptation, being concerned more with self-preservation than with adapting themselves to the service of the gospel. In other words, when Christians go about their lives, daily lives, without fear, they can discover God's constant surprises. But they need to have courage to dare. So you too, Siempre Adelante, the Pope says, with courage, creativity, and boldness, don't be afraid to renew your structures. Don't rest on your laurels of what you accomplished yesterday, but be ready to try new things. As in the Olympic Games, may you always be ready to pass the flame. Because above all, to future generations, knowing that the flame is lit from on high and precedes our response and exceeds our efforts. Such is the Christian mission. So, what's our tolerance for risk? So it's like, when we have to break out of what we did, I think we find ourselves that part of what I like to suggest to you is it's a little bit like you can't pour new wine into old wineskins. So if you're renovating or rejuvenating your club or thinking about what do we need to do to meet today's needs of the church and move towards tomorrow's needs of the church, we have to be ready to pick up our poles and move. So what does that mean? So here's an example. Topeka, Kansas Topeka, Kansas was formed maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago or so, and it faded away. After many years of success, it just quit recruiting. And then pretty soon it couldn't recruit. And so it went dormant. For 10 years, Topeka wasn't around as a club. But with the effort of the Serra organization, and with the effort of one of the local priests, we're able to recruit young people and new people that have a different way of meeting, but they have the same mission. So it's not so much that they're tied into a particular time or frame or whatever, but they have the same mission. So this is the supportive group of Serra. Right here on the left is Wayne, and he's the district governor, myself, Mike Downey, region director Juanita Smith, and then district governor or region director Jim Burns, and then Archbishop Nauman. But this is the future of the Topeka Club. It wasn't us; we helped get it going. But we've got Marie and Brad Miller. They're in their early 30s. They have 2 children. They're the co-presidents of this particular club. They were invited by Father Thomas Maddock. Father Thomas, 2 second-year ordained priest for the Diocese of Kansas City, Kansas. He says, come and join me for this gathering. We're going to talk about priesthood. And bring your kids, and I'll have pizza. And you won't have to cook that night. And she said, Marie, to Brad, we're going to this meeting with Father Thomas. Oh, really? What are we doing? She says, I don't care. He's feeding the kids. So we're going to get this done. And so after a couple of times of communication, we get a group that's largely this group. So what you can't see necessarily in this not so clear picture, but this is the incoming. They had 54 people sign up that are charter members of this club. 54 members. Okay, now what's also in this picture are 22 children of families. I mean, that's the average age of this group is under 50. All right, and so this is breaking the mold, isn't it? A little bit different, a little different. Crookston, Minnesota. It's up in the top, I don't know if you can see this, but that's the top northwest corner diocese of Minnesota. The biggest town in that diocese is 15,000. Okay, it is East Grand Forks, Minnesota. So Crookston is the second biggest, and it's I think 11,000 or so. So this group got together and they started meeting via Zoom. So the first thing we're going to do is start getting together once a month, and we're going to start praying, and we're going to start organizing. And you, all those people that are maybe sometimes 2 hours away from each other, are going to start working locally in your parish. So let's start doing things on our parish level, and then bring us together. And so they actually had never met before the the charter night. So this charter night happened, and then eventually they kind of gathered, and the goal here is that because they're so remote that they're going to be able to connect using technology, if you will. And then once a year they commit to get together, but they're going to figure out a way to meet that mission in a different type of a structure that will meet that really kind of a regional and really disparate, spread out area. So we've attempted to do this before, God willing, pray for them that they figure this out, how this is going to work. But these are the challenges that are going to be needed to be done in our church as we meet the needs, the vocational needs of the church. They need priests just as much as we do, or anybody. Think about it. So how do you accommodate that? How can we make this happen for people? So it's the ingenuity of these individuals, in particular Judy Cousins, Jerry Bees, who are from Minnesota that helped organize the group. And so this is part of what we're trying to get accomplished. So to wrap this up, and I'll just go, I want to say one thing about sister clubs. I showed you that picture in Paraguay of the flag. This is the flag. Now, this is a presentation of the flag by me to the clubs in Harlingen and Brownsville, Texas, down in the Rio Grande Valley. Now, I presented the flag from Paraguay to them because they've been supporting those clubs in Paraguay for a number of years. So they've been connecting with them, financially supporting them on the dues, for the USA, or rather the Serra International, and they have a connection with them. And what we're trying to build off of this is this idea of sister clubs. Sister clubs will be a new idea that we'll talk about this next year. Ways where clubs can, not necessarily just financial, we're thinking just to communicate. Because of our Serra International feelings about, or we kind of identify it similar to the way Sister Cities works around. Those of you who have cities that have identified have other cities. So I think sister clubs might might get some traction this year. So anyway, they've got this flag as a memento, and it is a constant reminder for them that they'll fly it and they'll see it and they'll realize that that's part of what they're doing and have been doing, is supporting these clubs. So I'm grateful to all of you. I'm grateful to my family, Mary Lynn, my daughter Leslie, John, my son David and his family. I'm grateful to St. Universe Serra. I'm grateful to the clubs here in Thailand who identify with this mission as much as anybody else. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to large crowds. And I'm grateful for young boys and girls and parents that promote and support the idea of vocations in the family and are in our way producing a next generation of priests and religious, and it happens at that level. So thank you very much for your time today.